I was involved in the joint committee before Christmas, the pre-legislative work, and we heard repeatedly how platforms believe that they're doing all they can to protect safety and protect from harm, but actually the reality is it doesn't come even close. And so my question to you is that with this bill, how much are both platforms, and we've got others later today, going to have to be dragged kicking and screaming to make sure that they put into place these measures, or are they actually going to be willing to work with Ofcom and other organisations to make sure that this is in place?
Yeah, I mean, for TikTok, we view ourselves as a second generation platform. We launched in 2018, and I think when you launch a product in 2018, you need to make sure that safety is at the very heart of it. I think the Secretary of State herself has said that this bill process actually predates the launch of TikTok in the UK. We view ourselves as an entertainment platform, and obviously to express yourself and to enjoy yourself and to be entertained, you have to feel safe. So I don't think we would just be seen as kicking and screaming in this regime. It's something that we've supported for a long time, and actually we are regulated by Ofcom currently under the VSP regime. I think what the bill will achieve is raise the floor of industry standards, a bit like GDPR did for data, so that all the companies in the future, and I think to Alex's point, you know, this is about the next 5 and 10 years in the future, there will be a baseline of standards that everyone must comply by and expectations that you will be regulated. I think also it takes a lot of these difficult decisions about the balance between safety and expression, privacy and security out of the hands of tech companies and into the hands of a regulator that of course will have democratic oversight.
I don't have very much more to add. We already engaged positively with Ofcom. I remember appearing before a select committee back in 2018 or 2019, and at that point saying that we were absolutely supportive of Ofcom taking in this role and regulation potentially being a game changer. We're supportive of the systems and processes approach and look forward to engaging constructively in the regulation.
And can I ask one small further question? Just for supplementary, was just in terms of the timing of this, obviously once the bill comes into law, there may be a period where it's enforced and to set everything up. Are both of your platforms already gearing up to make sure you fulfil the requirements of the bill from day one?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question. I think the problem with the bill is it depends on so many things that don't exist yet. So we are absolutely looking at the bill and thinking how we can prepare and start thinking about what's necessary. But in practice, content that is harmful to adults and harmful to children hasn't been set out yet. So much of the bill depends on secondary legislation, codes of practice. And as I described earlier in the question from Alex Davies-Jones, there are real workability questions around exemptions and ID verification that I worry there would be the risk of substantial delays at the other end, which I don't think anyone wants to see.
Yeah, I think same from our perspective. We obviously have our community guidelines and we're committed to enforcing those obviously at the moment. A lot of the detail of the bill will be produced in Ofcom's codes of practices, but I think it's important that we do think about operationalising this process and what it looks like in practice, and is it workable, and something like Katie mentioned in terms of the user empowerment duties and actually how prescriptive those would be and how those would work not just from the platforms of today but for the future is really important. I think for TikTok, to use a similar example on the user empowerment duties, the intent is to discover content from all over the world. When you open the app, you are recommended content from all sorts of users, and there's no expectation that those would be verified. I think if you opted into this proposed user empowerment duty, there's actually a concern that it could exacerbate the risk of filter bubbles, because you'd only be receiving content from users within the UK who have verified themselves, and we work very hard to make sure there's a diverse range of recommendations in that. I think it's a fairly easy fix. I think much like elsewhere in the bill where Ofcom has flexibility about whether or not to require specific recommendations, they could have that flexibility in this case as well, considering does this type of power work for these type of platforms. I think, to use the example of the metaverse, how would it work once the metaverse is up and running, for example. So the whole purpose of the metaverse is a shared environment in which users interact. And because the bill is so prescriptive at the minute about how this user empowerment duty needs to be achieved, it's not clear if you were verified and I was unverified and you'd opted not to see my content, but I moved something in the shared environment like this glass, whether that would move for everyone. It's a small point, but I think it just goes to the prescriptiveness of how it's currently drafted, and actually the importance of giving Ofcom the flexibility that it has elsewhere in the bill, but also in this section as well.